Progress.
Okay. So welcome to the Hazel Park Amateur Radio Club General Class License course for fall 2024. Um, I'm Wes Bluff, ACHJF. I'm the lead instructor. I think what we're going to do is, first of all, just go around a little bit and introduce ourselves, and then I have a slide presentation. So I just want to go in the order that you signed up for the class. This is, or is there? Take that back. Yeah, so what I'd like everybody to do is to say a few words about who they are and their experience with ham radio so far. So the first one would be Ralph Brown. Go ahead, Ralph.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name's Ralph Brown. I've had a technician's license for about 2 years, but I've been listening to ham radio my whole life, and I decided to get a technician's license. Well, I enjoy the hobby so much that now I'm going to go for my general. So I'm not a big builder or that. I just enjoy the hobby. I like listening and talking to people. So that's about it.
Okay. Next, Joe Farah.
Yeah, hopefully the microphone's working.
Yep.
Got microphone? Okay. My name's Joe, KE4ZYQ, Clinton Township. Got my license initially back in Tennessee. I'm from Michigan, but moved to Tennessee when I got married to my wife in medical field. We lived down there and both got our license technicians down there in 1986. And I eventually moved back here once my wife passed away and got back to Michigan, my home state. So got it reinstated last little bit due to necessities, reinstated, and then got back active again, which I'm glad I did. But hoping to maybe advance a little bit in the license. Back to the coordinator.
Okay, thanks. Chris Eckmeter, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Chris. I just got my technician license. I want to say it was December of 2023. Mostly just listening in on repeaters, but I'm also part of the University of Michigan Amateur Radio Club, and we're going to be building directional antennas next week, and then doing a fox hunt the following. So I'm really excited to do that, but mostly just pretty much using my HT on repeaters. Not much else yet, but a lot of things that I want to do with ham radio.
Okay, thank you. Keith Stats. We have Keith. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's my name is Keith. I'm KD9ZYK. Got my license in March of this year. I've got a couple of brothers. My late brother Kerry was had an extra class license for many years, and my brother Kirk also has an extra class license. I thought I was going to retire this year. So I signed up for a class here in the Chicago suburbs and then got my technician license. Not retired yet. They're not offering any in-person classes until next year. So I saw this class listed on the ARRL website and thought I'd sign up.
Well, we're happy to have you. We might be making Lions versus Bears jokes, but we're happy to have you. Okay, Bob Buns, go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Bob, AK7RTH. I got my technician license in February. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Got my technician license in February. My objective was I do a lot of hiking in northern Arizona where you're kind of off the grid. And I thought it'd be neat to have a handheld and be able to, hit some of the repeaters that are on the mountaintops. I joined a very nice club up here, and the activities that the club is doing increased my interest and encouraged me to go ahead and get the general license so I can do other things.
Okay, thank you. Jeffrey Graham.
Hi there, I'm Jeffrey Graham, KC8 EPV. I received my technician probably back in the mid 90s. Kind of fell out of the hobby after we had kids back in the late 90s and just started getting back into the hobby again. I decided to take this class.
Okay, thank you. And Kim Jones.
Okay, so I got my technician license in June of this year. Um, and I really got it because I just wanted to explore other ways to communicate should I ever need. And I did say that my grandfather was a ham operator. I can remember his station in the back room at their house in Pennsylvania. And it sounds like there is one. He had two radios, so it sounds like one of them I may be able to get. But this is a really good group, and I thought, you know what? I think this is interesting. I'd like to learn more. The other thing is you see my unfortunate randomly assigned um um call sign there. And I was trying to see if I could get my grandfather's handle, which it's a 1x3. We were talking about it. Sounds like I can get it. There is some question. When I called them, the lady said that he was an advanced. Now that'd be considered amateur extra, and it can't go to anyone but an amateur extra. I don't know if she was right. I'm still applying just in case. I wasn't planning on taking more classes this fall. I was just going to have some fun with it, but I want that call sign before it goes to anybody else. So I'm going to keep plugging along with you guys. And I know, I think I'm biting off too much to try to do the amateur extra right now. So we're learning what we can learn right now, and I'll kind of look forward to learning from all of you guys. I don't have a strong technical background. It's more of a writing background, but I think I can do it. I think I can. I think I can. So,
That's okay. It doesn't take a technical background. We have all sorts in the hobby. Um, okay, so now we're going to have the instructors say a little bit. Uh, and Marv, why don't you go first?
Yeah, Marv, Whiskey 5 Delta Tango. I've been a ham since 1986. I got my novice at 86, my general a year later, and my extra in 90, I believe. And I enjoy most facets of it. I spend most of my time in CW. I enjoy Morse code. I teach a couple of classes in it, and along, of course, with this general class. And I have a lot of fun with it. I you guys are going to have a lot of fun. You guys, once you get your general class license, it's going to open up a whole new world to you, and you're gonna truly enjoy it.
Okay, John Teagarden, why don't you say a few words?
Sure. Unless I have a comment, something Kim said, don't you have to have your general before you can take your extra?
I'm sorry, before you can.
Before you can take the extra test, I thought you had to have already
Yes,
completed the tech and the general to take the
yes. Well,
extra.
you can take more than one exam at the same sitting, but yeah, you have to pass the general before you can get your extra.
Okay, yeah, you can do them all at once. We've had people do that. And yeah, I actually started in the Boy Scouts with the ham, and it's pretty hard to get a station together when you're on paper route money. So I let it fall. And back then, the tech just or the novice disappeared after 1 year. You just, it was only good for 1 year, and then you had to upgrade or whatever. Um, but in the early 1990s, a friend got a shortwave rig, and I thought it was so cool. I got one and started listening. And then I had to go on medical leave, which gave me a perfect time to study. And so that's when I started getting on the air. It was in the 93, 94. And it's there's a lot of different things you can do with ham radio. Um, Christopher, no, who was in Arizona? Keith, was it? Or no, Colorado? Um,
Arizona.
it
I'm
was
in
you?
Arizona.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I worked a POTA station in Colorado just the other days, and POTAs are just little portable HF rigs, and um, and they're usually, you don't have a lot of power when you're carrying a battery around with you usually. So it's there's that side of the hobby, people that like to be outside a lot, and anyways, a lot of different sides to it, and we'll get you up to speed here, we hope. Um, I am a retired engineer, so I'll try to um, behave with the engineering. And so, anything else? I don't know. Been active in this club since I upgraded there in '94, and it's a pretty good club. By golly, we do a lot of different things, and education's one of the main functions, I believe. And I oh, and the U of M guy, I wonder, don't they have a club station over there? I thought, but an HF
Yep,
station.
W8UM actually just learned how to use their SDR rig that they have.
Okay, yeah. Well, you'll get a taste for it then. All right, I think I'm done, Wes. Did I forget anything?
Okay.
Oh, I'm kind of on a I had some oral surgery today, so I may drop out early. It's the pills are working fine right now. So back to you, Wes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, John. Okay. I'm Wes Fluff. I'm ACHAF. I just lost my video again. All right. This is a little flaky. There we go. Anyway, I'm a retired software engineer, and I have an electrical engineering background from the University of Michigan, as a matter of fact. Um, and I first got licensed in 1961 as a novice class operator. And then in the 1970s, I was living in an apartment in Chicago near the lakefront, which is really not conducive to putting up antennas. And so I let it drop, and I got interested again and relicensed in 2011, and now I have an extra class license. Um, and so I have done a lot of operating. I really oh, okay. We're not going to get into school rivalries very much here, though. Otherwise, we'll get distracted.
Thanks, Bob.
Anyway, sorry, have done a lot of activity. I like to do contesting. I like to do DXing. Um, I have put together a little bit of gear on my own, and I want to do more of it. And so, like many people, I'm a retread. I guess that's the right way to put it. Okay, so now I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to see if I can share my screen, and we will get into the more formal part of this. Come on. And I should point out, by the way, that none of the three of us is a teacher, and we're also a little bit rusty, so you'll have to pardon us. All right, let's see if I can do this now. See if I can share my screen. Yep. Here we go. Nope. Nope. There we go. Okay, can everybody see the slide now?
Looks like it's still loading for me.
No slide. There you go.
There it is.
Just popped up.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So this is one of the things we're doing is we're using a new set of slides. So if this looks a little bit uneven, it's because we have made changes so that first of all it fits the time, and second of all it's a little more personal. Anyway, Hazel Park Amateur Radio Club has the motto "Service through Education." So this is the education part, and I'm very happy that all of you have signed up. I hope we get our two missing people to come in at some point. But we should be good. Let's see here. Yep. Okay. Looks like nobody else is coming in. All right. So
Yeah.
okay.
There we go.
This is the official slide deck to go with this edition of the license manual. So let's go through some of the things that ARRL has to say, and then we'll do some of the things that I have to say. This is the book that you all should have, the 10th edition of the General Class License Manual. We are going to cover all the material in the book. Some of it not in too much detail, but the license manual, when you read through everything, covers everything that's on the test, and then there's a complete question pool. There's a complete copy of all the questions and answers for the general class license test in the back of the book. Now, this afternoon I sent out a document that's got errata, and it's got a couple more explanations of things. I hope during this week you will take the errata sheet and make corrections to your manual, because there are some typos there and some errors. Our schedule is going to be Monday nights at 7 p.m. from tonight through December 2, 13 weeks. We're including the holidays. I think we have one coming up very shortly. And this is only a Zoom session. What we found out is, unfortunately, people are not signing up to do this in person. So I'm going to ask you to participate because it is more difficult. If you know any teachers who taught during the pandemic online, just ask them about teaching online. We will do our best here. For people who are local to Detroit, there's going to be a license exam the night after the last class in Oak Park, Michigan. And the place where they usually hold it, I understand, is going to be torn down. So we will give you details when it gets closer to the date. And for those that are beyond that, not a convenient distance from Oak Park or out of state, we will help you find an exam that's local to you that you can take while all the material is still fresh. And there are groups that give exams online by video. Online exams are kind of new, and it involves basically you're on camera the whole time, and before you can start the test, which takes place through a web browser, you have to be able to show the test proctors that you have nothing with you that's not allowed, like cheat sheets. Okay, so let's go through the class procedures here. We're going to start and hopefully end on time to keep it to 2 hours. So checking in a little before 7 o'clock or before the start time is good, and your instructors appreciate that. We will take time to discuss things and answer questions to the best of our ability. And don't be afraid to ask questions. And each of us will try not to be afraid to answer if we can, or if we can't answer, we will get you the answers for the next week. We'll take a 10-minute break at 8 p.m. So you can take a bio break or refill your coffee cup or whatever. And what we expect from you is that you have a desire to achieve the general class license, and that you will show up for classes, that you will read ahead and be ready to learn and participate. And if you run into roadblocks, you'll talk to us about it and not get so frustrated that you give up. And if you do all the things we ask you to, you will pass the exams. We have a very good record. People who make it all the way through the course, there are very few who don't get their license right away. What it costs is get the three of us for free. You've already spent about $30 on the license, or $20 if you have the electronic version. Partway through, we're going to do some math, but you'll need a scientific calculator that does logarithms and exponents. And if you have one that you have left over from school, or your kid has been using at school, or you can use that, or you can buy one at the dollar store, or you can spend money on one. This is useful for calculations of decibels and power and things like that. And there will be some math in the middle of the course, but I promise we will not get to engineering school level. This will be all high school stuff. And I'll have more to say about the calculator in a little bit. The exam fee is usually $15 and is payable on the night of the exam. The FCC has started charging license fees, but if all you do is upgrade your license, then that is free. So you shouldn't have to pay anything for the license. However, I believe that when you upgrade your license, it does not change the expiration date of the license. Okay, here we go. And I'll talk about the calculator in connection with the exam a little bit later tonight. To go over the FCC fees, a couple of years ago, Congress passed a law that basically told the FCC to cover their expenses with license fees, and for quite a long time there were no fees for amateur radio licensing. Now there are. There's a $35 fee for a new license. That is, if you were getting a license for the first time, or for a renewal at the end of 10 years. And there's a fee $35 fee to request a vanity call sign. In other words, a specific call sign, like Kim's grandfather's call sign, for instance. And that's payable whether you get the vanity call sign or not. And vanity call signs are a little bit beyond the scope of this class. What you can get for free is a license upgrade from Tech to General, from General to Extra, and that should be all of you. You can also make a change of address. And when you get your general class license, right now you all have 2x3 call signs. For instance, WA8BCD would be that, 2 letters before the number and then 3 after. You can get a 1x3 call sign when you get your general, but it's assigned at random. You can get 2x2 call signs, like mine, 2 letters before and 2 letters after when you get an extra class license, which is what I did. At any rate, These sequential call signs where you have no control over which specific one you get are also free. And I know people who've done that. And I also know people who, as soon as they got their general class license, got specific entity call signs. A lot of people you get their initials. People in North Dakota get call signs that begin with ND0. People in West Virginia get call signs that begin with WV8. Things like that. Your instructors are myself, John, and Marv. We all have extra class licenses. We're all experienced hands, although my big break in the middle, I'm probably the one with the least experience. And we're all here to help you get your license. The book chapters, you can see here, just briefly, the different topics that they cover. And I'm not going to go into detail about that. The questions are organized a little bit different. What you're going to find is one chapter in the book is going to cover questions that are in more than one of the sub-elements. And there's a pool of several hundred questions. The test, the license exam is 35 questions, chosen sort of randomly from that large question pool, and you have to get 26 right to pass the test. Well, that's 74% if you're counting. However, our approach is a little bit different. We have found that people run into problems if we do too much math too close to the beginning. So we're going to do things in a different order. It's the order that's on the syllabus that I sent out to you this afternoon. We will cover all the material that's in the book. And just a warning, chapter 4, which is the most technical chapter, can be hard work, especially if you haven't used a lot of math since you graduated from high school. So all I can say is stick with it, and we will do our best to help you through this. It is doable. We had one guy who was a math teacher, so of course, a couple of years ago, so of course he had no problem at all. But we also have people who are teachers and writers and other occupations like that that are not at all technical, and they have done fine. So let's get started. This is the ARRL singing. Let's get started. Let's go back. Sorry. Our goal is to get you to pass the test and achieve your general class license. We don't expect that you will know everything by heart. We expect that you will that when you start using your new privileges, you will have a sort of beginner period when you get used to new ways to operate and new bands to operate on and new equipment to use. But what you get is, essentially, you get access to all the high frequency bands. You have, right now as technicians, you have privileges for all bands 50 megahertz and up. The general class license will give you privileges on every band. We'll give you some privileges on all bands 30 megahertz and below, besides you keeping your privileges 50 megahertz and up. And it will give you all privileges on some HF bands. And we'll go into that in detail when we get to the regulations. There is, let's see here. Okay. So why would you upgrade? First of all, you get access to high frequency operation. You get more communications options. You can work DX, distant stations. In the time I have been on the air since 2011, I've worked all 50 states and all the Canadian provinces, and I think all but one territory, and about 120 other countries. It's not hard. And as a matter of fact, right now, near the peak of the sunspot cycle, if you can get on HF, you can make a lot of overseas contact very easily. You can use more modes. There are there's no requirement to know Morse code, but Morse code, or CW as it's called, is a popular option for a lot of hands. And as a matter of fact, as Marv said, he's a Morse code instructor. So you can take another class from him after you get the license. If you want to learn the code or get faster at it. There are also digital modes that are text, and there's something called slow scan TV, which is also used on HF. There are new technical opportunities. You can learn about propagation. You can learn about antennas. You can build things more easily too. Most hams on the HF bands have put up at least one of their own antennas, and this is wire antenna territory. If you've got about 75 feet of open space between a couple of trees or between the peaking roof and something at the edge of your yard, you can build your own HF antenna and put it on the air. You can also build transmitters and receivers more easily for HF than for VHF. And a lot of people do that, and some people build kits, which is sort of an in-between step between doing everything yourself and buying rigs. You can also become a volunteer examiner and give tests to people wanting their technicians. I don't know how popular that is, but if you want to do that angle of things, that's fine. And to use the general class manual, when you look at every chapter, you'll see a brief review at the beginning, and the material will be covered in full breadth and some depth, and most of the exam questions, practice questions, in the text or in our presentation, in our live presentation. And we will be giving you these informal quizzes, although no grading. The questions, the question topics, covered in each section are covered at the beginning of each section, and then the questions themselves are usually at the end of each section. And they go over the material that you just read or we've just gone through live here. There's also a web page that has supplementary material. If there are more errors discovered, the errata sheet will be updated. There's also supplementary material you can get to this web page that covers topics in more depth. Now, ERRL recommends reviewing the relevant questions in the question pool after you've read through and understand a section. And also to do online practice exams. ARRL has a set of practice exams, and there's some others that I'm going to demonstrate, a little bit later on. Well, as a matter of fact, toward the end of the evening. Okay, so let's see here. So the upgrade trail, our focus here is going to be operating effectively on HF. Because by now you should be familiar with the HF operations. Certainly using FM through repeaters and simplex, but probably other operating modes too. HF is a different kettle of fish because it's not channelized and signals are noisy. There are somewhat different rules to follow. We're going to look at digital mode, the paramount. We're going to look at propagation because VHF propagation is generally only to the horizon, and repeaters can extend the horizon, but only to a certain distance. On HF, on some bands, ground wave propagation can take you well beyond the visible horizon. And the ionosphere and signals will travel through the ionosphere and get then back to Earth at very great distance. You can literally work around the world using ionospheric propagation, and we'll have a whole week on that. The material will go over the common test instruments that people use and practical electronic circuits, although you're not going to be expected to design or debug practical circuits. It turns out that in the United Kingdom, if you want to get a ham radio license, you have to be able to demonstrate that you can build things and explain how circuits work. You don't have to do that in the US. We'll go through the common antennas that you see for high frequency bands. This is a chart of all the privileges for all the classes. It's easy also to find online, and a black and white version is in chapter 9 of your book. So when we get to regulations, we'll be going through this, and there will be a separate handout for general class privileges. But basically, the thing to notice is that on most of the bands, particularly in the second column there, the general class licenses, the general class doesn't cover the whole band. Some areas are reserved for higher class licenses. Now, this includes two classes of licenses that aren't issued anymore. There's the novice class license, and people who have those have had them for 20 years or more at this point. There's also the advanced class license, which used to be between general and extra, and those are not issued anymore. So now they're just the three levels of licensing. But at any rate, you can see that, for instance, if you look at the top of the second column, extra class licenses can use the whole band. You can see the line with the E after. Advanced class can use everything but a small segment at the bottom end of the band. And general class licenses can use the whole band except for two small segments. And those are the red indicates where you can operate CW and digital modes. Although CW you can use anywhere in any of the bands by gentleman's agreement. It's only in the lower portions. You can also see that novices and technicians can operate CW in part of the band. As technicians, you do have privileges on 80 meters, 40 meters, 15, and 10 meters, although I don't know of any technicians who actually use those privileges. But you could get on the air on HF today in limited fashion. Okay, so this is the end of the ARRL slideshow, and now I have another set of slides I'm going to use that have the Hazel Park take on, and the emphasis is going to be slightly different. Here we go. All right, so I can close this, and I'm going to okay. This from the beginning. All right, so let me share my screen here. All right, in just a moment. Okay, can you see a slide that says what is required? Oh, did
Yes.
everybody see that? Okay, so I'm going to pick up where I left off here and go into some detail about the exam process, and then some things about operating, just the basics. So this is the stuff that you're going to do before you get on the air as a general class, as a general. So as I said before, the test, the license test, is 35 questions. You have to get 26 right, and most people by the time we're done can do much better than that. There's no Morse code requirement in this century, but as I say, it's still fairly popular. One reason is because CW, Morse code, can get through in poorer conditions or worse propagation than any other mode. And we'll get into the reason for that in a subsequent week. The technical exam, we're going to cover it in the sequence provided in the handout, in the syllabus. So we've scrambled the order of chapters a little bit, but we'll be covering all of the material in the book. It'd be nice if you come prepared to ask questions for things that you don't understand or want to understand better. And the certainly during the class sessions, ask questions anytime, and we will answer. Now, this class session is going to cover all the high points and the most difficult concepts, but there are going to be some questions. There are going to be some questions that are not covered, uh, as one of the instructors was speaking. But you'll get the idea by reading through the material and looking at all the questions and taking practice tests. And as I said before, we'll answer all your questions to the best of our ability. And if we can't give you answers right away, we will come back and answer next week. So what you can expect from us is we'll do the best we can. Start and end on time. If there's something that goes badly wrong, we just had a blackout here for a couple of days. If there are extenuating circumstances to prevent us from holding a regular session, we'll make every effort to let you know and do a makeup session. Now, since we're not doing this in person, it's highly unlikely, unless we have really terrible weather, that we're going to that we're here to postpone any sessions. But there is always that possibility. And your instructors will come to class prepared and motivated to get you to know all the material. No,
Can I make a comment, Wes?
yeah, go ahead.
Along the line here, we haven't done this online in a couple of 3 years, maybe. It was 21, I think. Um, but the interaction is what you miss when you go online. And I seem to remember as the class went on, we got more back and forth between the students. And it's just kind of cumbersome this way because it's like a cell phone where only one person can talk at once. So it sometimes the chat box helps if you want to get in there and ask a question and slow us down. But it takes it takes a little while to get used to this format. And that's all I have.
Yes, we are going to encourage you to use the chat. And one of the things that we do is people sometimes ask questions or make comments in the chat. And one of the things we do is sometimes, if it's more convenient, people will answer the questions. There are multiple choice questions. And you answer A, B, C, or D. Sometimes we do that via chat because people sometimes get a little frustrated and tired. Okay, I wanted to say something.
Can I? I'm gonna this is Kim. I'd like to chime in for a second.
Please.
Can you hear me? I don't know if you noticed what I just did, but I went over to the React section. It's a little heart on my screen, and there's a place where you can raise your hand. And that may or may not help you guys. I don't know. But sometimes I will do that when I'm in Zoom sessions. I'll raise my hand and then somebody knows to call on me.
Okay. We'll see how that works out. I mean, it all depends on oh, come on. Sorry, we got to get back to the right thing.
Uh,
It all depends on how formal or informal things are and how well we get along. But I really want to encourage people to speak up and don't be that person in the last row of the class. Marv, you wanted to say something?
I see that Christopher made a comment about using a calculator app on your phone. You won't be able to do that in the test. You
Yeah,
can't take a.
I'm going to get to that. I'm
Oh,
going to get to that
okay.
very, very shortly.
Okay.
Let's see if I can. Okay, so let's see if I can. Oh, if I can find this. Where I now there are a couple ways to approach getting a license. Now, for technician class licenses, there's a thing called Tech in a Day, where you spend about 6 hours going through material and the license test right away, and you don't have to do anything but memorize. And that doesn't work so well for the general or extra class material. And so just memorization isn't going to work, and we hope that you do it a little bit differently. Now, memorization is part of what we want you to do, but we also want you to understand the material, and that is the approach that we're taking. Not only cover all the material, but we hope to give you a good understanding of what it means. We want you to learn how to operate your station properly on high frequency bands. That means studying and taking the exam with the attitude that you're doing it to prove you know your stuff. Okay, so we went through this, we went through this, and if you do everything, you will pass the exam. Now, how to succeed? Read the book, take notes, ask questions, speak up while we're doing these live sessions.
If I could interrupt
And
for a second, I'm not sure if anybody else is just seeing the what is required slide. I'm wondering if maybe the wrong screen is being shared because it's still on what looks like a previous slide.
oh, geez, okay, here we go. I'm sorry. Then I probably am. Let's try this again. Bear with me just a second here. All right, let me try this again. I'm sorry, I thought I was cycling through all of this. All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. I know if you got multiple displays, it can be a little confusing with the Zoom screen share.
All right, this again.
Yeah, I kept trying to pull the page down.
Okay.
What I find is easiest is with PowerPoint. I don't know if you've got multiple displays or not, but I usually start the PowerPoint presentation in full screen mode and then go into
Yeah.
Zoom and share the screen. Because I notice sometimes when you go into full screen mode, it's almost like a different screen for how Zoom recognizes it.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So it should be this one. Let's see if this comes up. There we go. You should see a slide that says approaches to gaining a license.
Yep, that looks good. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm sorry about that. Yeah, this is why you should be speaking. You know, if I'm rambling on and on, you're seeing the same slide. That's not good. Okay, so we've been through this, we've been through this. Okay, so to succeed in the book, chapter, and do the best you can to understand it. Take notes, both while you're reading and um, and during the live class sessions. Ask questions, ask lots of questions if you don't understand stuff, and we will get you there. Take practice tests. Now, you're here to pass the test. Don't ever forget that. So, so practice tests, it is not too soon to start, and I'm going to demonstrate a couple of them after the break. And I will send out a handout after the session tonight. I'll send you all a handout with 4 of the sites that I found are reliable and also free or mostly free. What you need to do is register for each, but unless you want really detailed tracking of how you're doing, you shouldn't have to pay anything. And I understand there are also smartphone apps, so you can study test quiz, so you can try taking tests during your coffee break or when you're riding the bus. The reason to take tests, practice tests, is so you're familiar with the material and you won't get the jitters when you get to the real license test, because if you do well on the practice tests, you'll know what to expect and you'll pass the real exam that much easier. So we're going to be doing some of that. As a matter of fact, last night, to review what we've done before is to use the online practice tests for people to do real quickie, uh, fake exams, so to speak. Okay, so let's look at the requirements now. You should be seeing a slide that says general class overview. To to qualify for a general class license, you must pass element 2, the technician exam, and element 3, the general class exam. And all of you already have your techs, so all you need to do is pass the general. People who had their technician class license before March 21st, 1987, can upgrade to general by going to a test session with proof of being licensed before that date. Now, that applies to old fogies like me, but probably to none of you. But you may see an exam question about that. If you have an expired license that's beyond, if you have an expired license, you can renew within the 2-year grace period. But if you go beyond that, if you formerly had, if you had a general class license that was expired that expired more than 2 years ago, if you can pass the tech test, you can get the general class license back. So these are 2 little escape routes that I doubt anybody tonight will do. Although it's very interesting. I could have done this because I had an advanced class license that was expired. I could have done this back in 2011 and didn't know it. I took the test anyway. On the night of the exam session, you need to bring $15 exam fee, and I believe that the local exams here in Oak Park, Michigan, they prefer payment by check. You need to bring you need to bring 2 forms of identification, including one with a photo. You need to bring your registration, your FCC registration number, FRN. And to get your tech license, you should already have an account with the FCC. And you need to put your email address on the application. To fill out an application in person at the exam session. It's also polite. It's also polite to notify the person or group, or the person in charge of the group giving the exam that you plan to attend. That helps them get a better handle on how many people are going to show up. Um, Now, there in-person exams. There are some that happen every month in the Detroit area and probably within easy reach of Ann Arbor. I imagine in the Chicago area and I believe let's see, I believe that even in Flagstaff or Bob, you shouldn't have to travel too far. Some groups will give exams online by video, as I mentioned, and they're rather stringent about what you can and cannot do during the exam. It helps to make it helps to make arrangements in advance, although uh, a lot of hamfests will give exams, and so if you go to a hamfest, you can be a walk-in, and people will really encourage you to do that, to show up and take the test. Generally, you'll pay an admission fee to the hamfest also, but who knows, you might win the raffle. Now, to do the math that's on the test, you should bring a scientific calculator. But you can't bring a programmable or graphing calculator, and you can't use an app on your phone. So what I did was I went to the dollar store and I found one for $1 or two. And when the battery runs out, since it's not replaceable, I'll just throw the thing out. But you really don't have to spend a lot of money, especially if you don't have any other use. If you have a kid in school who has a scientific calculator, you can steal it for the exam session and maybe for a couple of nights of classes here. Um, okay, I'm going to
Question.
do a couple. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Joe, KE4ZYQ. I got a Texas Instrument TI-30 stat. Does that sound like the one?
Yeah, it's probably okay. As long as you can't program routines into it, it should be okay.
Okay.
As long as it does logarithms and exponents, you should be all set. Well, plus basic math. Okay, so after you pass the test, you should receive on the spot a certificate of successful completion of exam, unless you take the exam remotely, in which case I think they have to mail you. But when you have that piece of paper in your hand, you can immediately start using your general class privileges while you're waiting for the FCC to issue your official license. And until your license arrives, the form you use is your calls line /AG. So, for instance, if you were WA8XYZ, as a general, you would give your call sign as WA8XYZ/AG, and that is just a signal to people who you contact. If you're using your general class privileges, it's an indication to people you contact that you deserve to be there. And also, if you sign on with that, you'll get a lot of attaboys. Now, what the FCC does, I'm going forward, not back. Okay. So after you pass the test, if the FCC wants a fee from you, if you're doing something besides just getting a license upgrade, they will send you an email and you pay online. And then what happens is the group that gives you the exam will send in forms that or do it electronically that say that you that certify that you passed the exam. And then the FCC has to process it. And some people I've read some people saying that they got notified by the FCC within just a few days, but usually it takes a week or two. The FCC will email you saying that your license has been upgraded. They will tell you how to get to your license information online. And what you do is you download and print the license certificate. And just like the technician, it comes in two forms. One that you can frame and mount on the wall, and one that you can laminate and put in your wallet. And you should sign them and keep one with you if you want to operate at some other station. So now it is 8 o'clock, so I'm going to stop. Stop here if I can find the right window here. Start again. And let's see if I can get back to this. Yeah, there we go. Let me show you the screen. And there we go. You should be seeing after passing the test slide, yes?
Yep, we see that, or I see that at least.
Okay, good. All right, and you should see, okay, you should see a different slide now with dollar figures on it. Now this is not part of the exam, but just to give you some idea of what to expect. What does it cost to get on the air on HF? You can go the budget route, or you can go the new radio route. You can buy HF transceivers that are 15 to 30 years old for $250 to $500 used. And I would recommend that if you're not real familiar with this kind of equipment, that you get advice or have somebody go along with you who does know what they're doing, somebody more experienced. But there are a lot of good radios, and because they're solid state, they don't wear out. It's always the mechanical stuff that wears out. But I started out with, in 2011, I had a transceiver from the 1980s, and it did just fine, except in the most crowded conditions. If you take this route, then you should budget about $500 to $700 to put a station on the air. Don't forget, you're going to need an antenna, you're going to need a power supply, you're going to need some way to get the feed line through the wall or the window from your ham shack to the outdoors. And optionally, you may want a key or a paddle to work CW. You can buy new transceivers, and I mentioned a couple of the popular ones. I think Yason fans might be upset at this, but they cost $1,000 to $1,200 generally, and there are 2 times a year when prices are lower, and that is in the Christmas shopping season, and then right around the Dayton Hamvention in May. So you'll be in a good place at the end of this course to put in with Santa Claus for a nice shiny new rig. And the overall budget for that would be $1,200 to $1,500, a little bit higher. It's been a while since I revised these figures. There's a third route, and that is you can buy inexpensive gear. For instance, I think the brand name is Shegu or Seagu. You can buy low power HF transceivers that run 5 to 20 watts, as opposed to 100 watts for a power for a traditional transceiver. And those will work fairly well too, except that you're going to be a weaker state than other hams. But that's another approach that you could take. Now, also, if you get on the air on HF, you will be computerizing your ham station. And the thing to do on a computer, I use an old laptop of mine. Um, it's you will want to log contacts. That's pretty much a given. If you want if you want to exchange QSL cards, if you want to buy for if you want to participate in contests, then you have to keep track of the details of who you contact and when. Um, digital modes, digital modes like radio teletype, for instance, sending and receiving is all done using software modems these days, and the demands of the software are mounted on just about any old computer or Macintosh or Linux box. There are some services online. There's one thing called DX spotting that uses servers, and people who work rare stations or distant stations will who they contact and what frequency. And that's an easy way to find rare stations. For instance, if you are trying to contact countries. It's also useful in contests, although I like to use that kind of assistance, and some people don't. You can also navigation predictions or websites online. And that's useful if if you're trying to contact a rare station or if you contact a particular place overseas, that's very useful. So you should expect to use necessarily your main computer, but a computer as part of your ham radio station. You get active on high frequencies. Now I want to end the slideshow portion with a word from our sponsor, Amateur Radio Club. For those of you who aren't members but live in Southeast Michigan, on the second Wednesday of every month from September through May, it's a pretty good club. The doors open around 7. Public meetings. The things that we do besides meetings and regular programs are we operate field day every year. We have a Sunday night 2 meter nap. We have regular Saturday breakfasts. We do some activities for mentoring and for building things. One of our members has had people over at his house to build antennas. And you can get more information at the website, arc.org. Also, if you're not already a member, you should consider joining the American Radio Relay League, which is our national association. The benefits include there are 2 magazines, QST for general interest in the air for beginners, as well as 2 more technical magazines that we publish every other month. You can find online technical information on many topics, and you need to be a member to access some of it. You can get books and some things like antennas, shirts, merchandise at discounts. ARRL offers some training courses. They also are advocate with the FCC and with Congress. Right now, one of the big efforts is, a few years ago, there was a new rule that came out that said local zoning boards can't ban amateur radio antennas out of hand. You have to give due consideration to reasonable regulations. Now there is an effort lobbying with Congress, and there's a bill in Congress to do the same with homeowners associations. Now, probably only a couple of you have to deal with HOAs, but that is a big deal when people live in HOAs. They either have to put up antennas that they hide or put under their roofs. And the idea is to be able to make reasonable accommodations to put amateur radio antennas outdoors where they work better. So that's the end of the slideshow here. Well, let me stop sharing this. Oops, somewhere. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to do two more things tonight before we let you go, and this won't take too long. I want to show you, first of all, some of the, let me get out of this. I want to show you some of the online practice tests that you can find. As I said, I'm going to be sending out a handout at the end of this, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you four of these very briefly. And it turns out for all of these, excuse me, for all of these, you do not pay anything except some of them have more advanced features, but you do have to register. So let me see if I can bring this up now. Here we go. So I'm going to show you the. Let's see here. Are people seeing a web page now?
Sure.
Or not?
Yep, I'm
Yes.
seeing webpage.
Yes.
All right, this shows up a little bit differently. Let's see if, oh yeah, okay, I can do this. So I'm going to log in and just to show you some of the features very briefly here. What you can do is you can do a number of things here. Oh, there we go. You can do a number of things here. You can go through section by section. You can review by book chapter. You can review by FCC sub-element, which is the way that the FCC, well, which is the way the exam questions are organized. Now I'm going to go back here and I'm going to show you very briefly the practice exam. So this is the kind of thing that you'll see, and I'm just going to cheat here because I don't expect you to know very many of these things. But zero beat and CW operation means matching your transmit frequency, matching your transmitter frequency to the frequency that you receive. 10, 20, and 50 ohm resistors in parallel would be 5.9 ohms. And the trick, when you connect resistors in parallel, equivalent resistance is always less than the smallest component, and so forth. I'm just going to quit right here. Ham exam. Ham exam has ham radio exams, and what's this? Whoops. Okay, I don't remember my password, but you can see if you look down just halfway down the thing, you'll see under ham radio question field. You'll see that there are flashcards that you can practice with. There are practice exams you can take, and you can look at the question field. Ham study is another website that you can use. Let's see if I save my password for this. And the answer is not really. And so you can look through this. You can go through this without being graded. And this looks like it's flashcards. You can choose here. So the question is, when you're transmitting on SSB, what frequency separation should you have from adjacent frequencies? And I believe the answer to that is A. You get an explanation here. You can go through and study. You can answer questions this way. You can take practice tests. You can just read through the questions and the answers. So this way you're graded, and you don't see the answers right away. And I'm not going to go through this one. And then I don't know if you're familiar with QRZ.com, but that is a website that has news, and it's a place to look up. It's a place to look up a lot of other people, or to look up. It's a place to look up the details of other people, if you know their call sign or their name, and then there are practice exams here too. And again, you can look at specific subcategories or take entire practice tests. So this will give you complete tests, 35 questions, and then we'll grade you at the end. And I'm going to just avoid this too, so I'm going to stop sharing this. So I encourage you to start looking at these things, even though you haven't done anything for the exam material yet. I've given you information to answer maybe 3 or 4 of the questions about getting the licenses. The process of getting your license, but we'll be doing a lot more in coming weeks. So let me this. Now I'm going to try something here. I'm going to play some. I'm going to play some of the signals that you'll hear. And the reason for this is, if you're used to VHF FM, you're used to signals that are full quieting and very intelligible. And almost everything you will do on the HF bands is going to have noise associated. So let's see if I can make this come through. So first of all, I'm going to play a very brief clip of somebody sending hello in Morse code. This is going to be very clear because it is just local audio. Sorry about that. This will take a moment. Here we go. Oh, here we go. So this is just a very... Can people hear that well, or is it at a little distance?
Not at all.
Can't hear it at all, but I'm wondering if maybe the noise cancellation in Zoom might be cutting it out.
Okay, well, let's see if I can share the application. Maybe that will help. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Let's share. Here. You can see my secrets now. Here we go. Winamp. Okay, this is going to look really weird, but so now let me play this again. And can people hear that all right? Are people hearing the Morse code?
No,
No?
no.
No,
Okay. I don't know what to do about this exactly.
Um,
One thing I was gonna say is when you go to share your screen, you'll notice that there's an option in the bottom left corner before you hit share, that says it's like forward computer audio or something like that. You might need to stop
Oh,
sharing, reshare, and hit that.
all right, let's try that. As you can tell, your, as you can tell, your, here we go. Tell we're a little bit rusty.
No
Okay,
copy.
let's look at options here. Ah, here we go. All right, so I'm going to share the sound, and let's see if this does it. All right, so you should see a little bit, you should see the Winamp screen now, and let's see if this works.
Yep, we can hear that.
Oh, that is Morse code at 20 words a minute, and the fellow who's doing it is sending hello. Now, this is what CW sounds like when you're on the air. Uh, you can hear stations at several different speeds. All right, that's probably enough. You can hear several stations at several different speeds there. Now I'm gonna play a few digital modes for you. And these are things that are here, and we're gonna go through in fourth week, I believe. The third or fourth week, we're gonna go through what these different things actually are.
Hmm.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm juggling a bunch of things here right now. And my apologies for not being completely prepared. All right, this is, oh no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do a sample of FT4. This is a digital mode. This is a weak signal digital mode. And you can hear it's just one tone with a little bit of warble. Play. I'm going to play what happened. FT4 and FT8 are related. One FT4 is just but this is stuff where you're really talking computer to computer, and so this is what happens in the band. One voice signal, you can have 20, 30, even more stations on the air, and you'll hear this. And you can in tones, and you can hear that there are several of them. Each tone is a separate station, and starts and stops at the same time. That's because everything's synchronized to GPS time. FT8 and FT4 and others weak signal um, so they can capture signals and synchronize them. So they know where to look on the time scale for that. So let's play another digital mode that's designed for low bandwidth but not weak signal. It's called PSK31. There's a buzzing sound there. There's a sort of buzzing sound there, and that's the signal. That's designed so that if you type on a keyboard in real time, hold conversation with other people in real time. Now I'm going to play a little bit of radio teletype. This is actually build mode. This goes back. This started to be popular, I think, in the 1960s with real teletype machines, analog interfaces, and now, of course, everything's computerized. And this is going to be loud, but it doesn't last very long. No. Sending probably 20 or 30 characters. People tend to make fairly short transmissions on radio teletype. Now I'm going to, you'll also hear something called slow scan TV, SSTV, and I'm going to play some of that. I think this was also loud. You can send a picture anywhere from about 20 seconds to 2 minutes, depending on how much detail, the resolution, and depending on whether it's black and white or color. And what you're hearing there was at the beginning of the transmission was a little synchronization, and then each tick synchronization for one line of video. A warbling tone means that there are different colors, or a buzzing tone, and a steady tone, the line is all one color. All right, so play a couple of, you're probably using a lot of voice to play a couple of clips of which is the dominant mode, because it uses half the bandwidth of AM. You can communicate in worse than in than AM, and we'll go into that when we get into different kinds of modulation. Anyway, you've probably heard single sideband duckbot. I want to play first a clip of tuning through an SSB frequency. It's going to start high and go through the natural voice, low, and then back to the natural voice.
Brought to you by the California. This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager.
Your participation. 73, Doug.
So you can hear at first he sounds high and pretty good, and then low pitched and off. And then I centered the tuning in. Let me do that again.
I appreciate that good signal report. Your participation. 73, Doug.
No, I'm gonna play what sounds like what a typical EX QSO sounds like, or when you're listening. The guy who's doing the talking that you can make out is in the Falkland Islands off South America. And I believe he's talking to a guy in Great Britain, but you can't. This is what it sounds like.
Got to be, dare I say it, and I don't want to offend any people, one of the ugliest ships I've ever seen over. Indeed. Well, we passed the farmer probably 2.5 weeks ago as we were coming south from the Falklands. She was heading north. I did sit, I was in bed, but apparently we'll be going up to Venancy.
So when you're tuning single sideband, it's a little bit of an art. Most people try to transmit on right on a kilohertz mark. In other words, it's say 7200 kilohertz, but not 7200.05, or they'll transmit on the half kilohertz, and that helps. But it takes a little bit to figure out how to tune for the natural voice, and sometimes it's really hard, especially in weak signals. And no offense, Kim, but women's voices are harder to tune than men's. I think you'll find when you operate on a system, people you talk to are more likely to be off frequency than when it's two men talking to each other. Okay, so I'm going to play one more, and that is all of these signals that I played have been steady because it's regular ionospheric propagation. But you can also propagate signals through the aurora. Now this is 6 meter CW, 6 meter CW conversation, and I, who's in Ontario, is going to sound very buzzy because that's a characteristic of aurora propagation. And hear local audio from the guy he's talking to, who is in New England. So this is on 6 meters, and it's probably I want to say about a mile path. That's where signals are being propagated through an aurora. So actually, the aurora would be north of where either station was, and it's sort of being reflected back off. So this is what this sounds like. If you ever hear this, this means that probably regular propagation is not going to be all that great. Okay, I'm going to stop there. But what you heard, the really scratchy Morse code was the distant station, and then the pure tone you heard was a K1 station answering him. And you will occasionally hear this kind of thing. So we are just about out of time. Does anybody have any questions or any points they want to bring up? I'm hearing silence. I've worn you out. Okay, so you should expect an email from me tonight with information on where and practice exams. And then when I know where to look for the YouTube video when it's up, I'll let you know. Where that is. Although I guess there's an HPARC video channel on YouTube. Bob, you have anything to say about that? No, I guess not. Okay, so in that case, that's it for tonight. Thank you very much for sticking it out with me. Everybody stayed the whole time, which I think is great. Yeah, Ralph.
I have a question.
Please.
On chapter 2, it starts and it gives the examples of good practices with questions. those are the correct answers they give, or are those not the correct answers? The very
Those
first
are the.
page on chapter
Let me dig up my manual here.
2.6.
I believe they are the correct answer. One moment. Well, on page 2-1, on the first page there, that's just
First question, which is following true concerning access to frequencies? And then it gives an answer.
there are no answers there. Those are just the questions, not the answers. There are no answers on that page. That's
That's
just a
what I didn't
sample.
understand.
That's just a sample of the kinds of questions that go along with this chapter. And I think if farther into the chapter, you'll see each one of those is presented again in question and answer format.
Are you referring to like on page 2-1, like under HF operating techniques, where it's like G2B01 has like the bolded question, and then below that unbolded text that kind of looks like the answer?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
he clicked. The reason I say that, if you look at the fourth
Oh,
question down, G2B05, you actually click that on the example tonight, the 2 to 3 kilohertz
okay.
on the thing. And it was
Well,
the
I take that
correct
back.
answer.
Yes, I take that back. Yes, those are the right answers. Those are
Well,
the
I
right
didn't want to
answers.
get confused because that's with the practice questions and with what you're doing. I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's okay. I mean, if they're giving you the answers right there, that's great. And maybe you'll remember them, maybe not. But if you then read through the study material and the practice questions that are further on in the chapter, that will do more to cement it in your memory.
I understand. And then one last question. It says the NATO alphabet, but it doesn't say the phonetic. Are the NATO and phonetic the same?
Yes.
When you do Alpha, Charlie, Delta, Bravo.
Yeah,
See,
Alpha,
it gets
Bravo,
confusing.
Charlie,
If you're
Delta,
not a
Echo,
general person and you don't use it every day, it gets confusing. You guys switch back and forth. You say 6 meters and kilohertz and back. For someone who's not really versed in that, forth real quick.
Okay, all right. I'm
But
going to
you did a
jump
great
ahead.
job. You did a great job. I just had a that.
I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit. First, to answer your first point, is very common on HF because of noise and interference to use the alphabet for letters. So, for instance, on FM, I'd say this is ACHAF, but on the HF bands, on high frequency bands, I would say this is Alpha Charlie 8 Juliet Foxtrot. And as a matter of fact, you'll hear a lot of people in contests, you'll hear people, all they will say is their call sign. And it's a very abbreviated format. But at any rate, on HF. And let's see.
Oh, you answered the question. A lot of ham radio, and when you were talking about the CW or the code, they always all the repeaters have a what they call a Roger that sends out a Morse code with their call letters on it, and it's got to go every so often, like every whatever, like 10 minutes.
Every minutes the repeater is active, it has to identify. And
Correct.
yeah, you'll hear every repeater do that. Usually, if somebody just kerchunks the carrier, will come up for a little bit and identify, and then go off. Every 10 minutes, at the end of somebody's transmission, if 10 minutes have elapsed, you'll hear the Morse code ID. And so you were also asking about getting confused between meters and megahertz. And the short answer is, we'll get into that, but the shorter answer is they go in opposite directions. So 80 meters is 3.5 to 4 megahertz, 4.3, and so forth. So when I say 6 meters, there's actually a formula for that. It turns out that vice versa, the frequency in megahertz is 300 divided by the, for the actual ham bands, you'll find out they come in those nice round numbers. But what happens is people, hams usually refer to different bands both ways, at least for the HF bands or HF through 6 meters. And it's just something you know. I mean, 20 meters is
Well, see,
14 megahertz.
I don't know that. It gets confusing when they go back and forth, and I get
Yeah.
confused. But I'm going to learn all this. Thank you.
It's just something. Yeah, it's just something you get used to. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the frequency allocation chart that I had up on the slide, you'll see both the name and the common name of the frequency range for that band. But usually frequencies above the 2 meter band are only referred to by frequency.
Yeah, they added those BLF bands, and boy, I cannot remember those. The 20,
Yeah,
and I don't know how many.
yeah.
Right.
So,
You answered all my questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
okay. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say?
Yeah, so just for next week, make sure we have chapter 2 read before the class, correct?
Before the class, look through the material, try a practice test on that. Even if you get a really terrible score, at least you get in the habit. And I would say also try different practice test sites and applications until you find one that you personally like. So with that, next week, Mara was going to talk about operating procedures, both normal operating procedures and emergency operating procedures. And this is stuff that mostly will be on the exam. So until then, I'll say thank you all for sticking this out, for being such a good audience, and hope to see you all next week. So good night, everyone.
Take care.